Hello, good morning everybody. Welcome to today's Infor BI Q&A webinar. My name is Phil Keats and I'm the Consulting Director at Millennium. For those of you who aren't familiar with Millennium, we're a specialist management consultancy and we implement, deploy, upgrade and optimize SunSystems and related technologies for clients all over the world. Last month we discussed the upgrade of SunSystems 6 to 6.4. And today we're going to hear about Q&A 11. Today's webinar will be presented by Principal Consultant Albert Baumer, who has over 20 years experience supporting clients in the deployment and use of SunSystems and related software. Albert will provide us with an insight into the functionality provided by Q&A 11. So it's a quick run through today. We should be through in about half an hour. With some Q&A at the end. So it's a very high level kind of insight for you. I'm now going to hand over to Albert and he can take us through his presentation.
Thank you, Phil. Right, I'm Albert Baumer. I'm going to take you through the new features of Q&A 11. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick product overview of what they've sort of moved around in the product and what's different. I'm then going to drill into some of those particular new features that they've added, give an overview of some of the new functions with a little bit of sort of a demonstration, just in terms of screenshots of how they actually work and how that functionality works, and then open it up to some sort of Q&A at the end. So basically Q&A 11 is the product that they were originally going to Infor were originally going to call Q&A Evolve, and then it got rebranded as Q&A BI, but now it's actually been branded as, because it's moved back to the SunSystems implementation team, and it's now been decided to call it Q&A 11. So it's effectively the direct upgrade for Q&A 10, which is what most clients are using, and it will be the future product of Q&A. So at some point Q&A 10 will actually go into sort of, sort of basic support status and then be retired as a live product, and Q&A 11 will take over. So Q&A 11 uses a web-based architecture. So basically it's client server. So what it has is it has a server backend which provides all of the communications to the database, and it publishes via a website the ability to then connect your Microsoft Excel to that web service and run reports and view reports and extract data. It means it's not separate configuration on each individual machine to actually talk to the database server. It's purely the back-end web server that's actually doing all the communication for it. Now the advantage of this is, by moving away from the current add-in functionality and the COM model it currently uses, is it can now support 64-bit versions of Excel, which obviously has significant performance advantages, but also has sort of significant advantage if you're in a sort of a Citrix or remote desktop deployment mode, where the 32-bit version of Excel was actually severely limiting the amount of memory available to each user, whereas obviously 64 doesn't have that same sort of limitation built in. The other thing that they've done is they've basically got rid of all of the separate components that used to exist as part of Q&A. So in Q&A 10, there's an alert tool which does all the scheduling tasks. There's Q&A Executive, and there's Q&A Excel, and those have all been merged into a single client. So it's all run from one portal, and the only bits that are separate portals are now for the management features. So user setup, those kind of things, which typically are only done on the server in any case, or only done occasionally to work to make new users. So basically the new features that they've actually added in, as well as migrating tools across, is the new version of Q&A now has the ability to schedule your workbooks directly in Excel without the need of using Q&A Alert. So because it's all client server, obviously the server end can actually run those reports for you and either email them out or PDF them, or just do a basic extract so it can effectively refresh your reports. And the end user can literally do it from within Excel. So we're going to actually have a look at that a little bit later, how easy that is for an end user to actually do. But compared with the alert tool, which I'm not sure if any people really used, which used to be, you know, another tool, and you had to load it in, and it didn't always run, and you had to make sure it was on a separate machine so it was actually available. They've sort of moved it all in to the Excel client, so it's a lot easier to run. They've also fixed the problem which could be sort of particularly an issue on sort of Citrix implementations, which was where the add-in has to be added by each individual user into Excel every time they logged in as a new user. Whereas what they've now done is they've given an add-in sort of manager on the desktop machine, which not only checks to see that the desktop machine can actually talk to the server, but it also gives you the ability to actually add the Microsoft Excel add-in for all users who ever log onto that server or onto that machine. So in a Citrix environment, it means that the administrators can actually deploy the Excel add-in, then say, I want it available for every single user who goes into Excel, and they don't have to think, well, actually, do the individual users have the rights to run the add-in program and the Microsoft.NET functionality within there, because it's all contained within the tool. What they've then done is they've brought in functionality that did previously exist in the Q&A executive tool, but now it's actually within the Q&A Excel tool. And this is the functionality of Breakout, Expand, Transaction Drill Down, and Drill Path Manager. Now, Transaction Drill was available to a limited extent in the current version of Q&A and would work on summary link fields. And it would basically use a sort of like a pseudo Q&A executive applications. It would pop out into a different application to give you the drill. But this is now a more fully featured drill down functionality, which all of these features I'm going to actually show in more depth in a second. They've also added a migration tool to allow you to migrate your existing reports from Q&A 10 to Q&A 11. And providing you're still on obviously 32-bit version of Excel, it's actually possible to run the current version of Q&A and the new version simultaneously in the Excel add-in. So what you can do is you can progressively migrate your reports from one version of Q&A to the next version, but still be able to run both at the same time. And when you're finished with the old Q&A 10, you can obviously just remove that add-in from there. But the migration tool does it on a spreadsheet by spreadsheet basis. It's no longer a separate product as it used to be in Q&A 10. But it basically just allows you to open up your report and you can say, right, I want to convert this to Q&A 11. And it will then just take the same functionality and migrate with like-for-like functionality. The thing about 11 is because of some of the new features, sometimes it's worth redesigning the report to actually work in a slightly different way and take advantage of the new features that are available. The other thing that they've done is they've changed how the upgrade path is going to work from the newer versions in Q&A 11 now. So as of Q&A 11.3, they've actually introduced the patch set deployment update as they have within the core SunSystems product. So this removes the current issue with Q&A 10, where if you want to go from, let's say, 10.1.8 to 10.1.10, you actually have to uninstall the original version and then reinstall the new version each time you need to do an update. So actually the update is actually quite a major upgrade each time. Whereas this time now it's just a deployment of a patch. So once you've got the core software installed, you just literally apply a specific patch to that software and then it allows you to do the update. So as I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go into these specific functions and I'm going to actually show you exactly how these new functions now work within Q&A 11 and how it allows you to do additional functionality in Excel that previously wasn't available. So Transaction Drill Down is the first product we're going to have a look at. And what I did here was, this is a basic Q&A summary report on the left hand side. The difference being in Q&A 11 is every single individual cell that's got a value in it is now actually a formula when you actually have a look at it. So this line here is actually for line 1300. And as you can see, it actually has a formula to say what that data is made up of. And because of the way how they've redesigned it, it now means that I can actually click on any of these cells, right click and say I want to do a transaction drill down, because each cell is effectively almost a separate mini query, although the way the report extracts, that doesn't actually have an overhead on performance as it would with the old summary link functionality. So basically I can now run out a summary report as a single selection. So I did a single report here saying I want to have a summary report for 9 periods of all accounts. And then I can just click on one account and say, well, that value looks a little bit strange. I can then right click and say, right, I want to drill down and have a look at what makes up that particular value. So then it gives me my pop-up, and basically I can then, in the same way as you would for a normal Q&A report, I can then select the fields that I would like to output. There is a search functionality, so if you're not quite sure where the field appears in the list, you can just type in a search and it will actually show you all of the ones that match that criteria. And then once I've actually specified what I want to output and hit the OK button, what it does is it creates a new tab in my workbook and does the extraction for me. So in this case, I said I wanted to do a detailed report out of there, so I want to see each individual transaction. So it's giving me each individual transaction that made up that balance, and it puts a comment cell on the top right hand corner to say what the extraction was made up of and what the selection criteria was used to make this specific report. So if you're then looking back, having sort of done a number of these, you can actually very easily see what this report was actually trying to deliver to you, and you can actually refresh this bit of data as well. So the next function I'm going to look at is expand, which again used to be a functionality within Q&A Executive. So expand works very well if you're using reporting codes, so A codes on your chart of accounts to group account codes together. So you can do a summary report at the reporting level, and then if you wanted to expand out to there to individual account codes, let's say, which is what I'm doing in this instance, you can then expand out further. So here, this was again a summary report at the group reporting code level, where it was grouping my types of accounts together. So I've got all of my sales, cost of sales, etc. And again, each individual cell again is an individual formula back to the database. So what I can then do is I can then expand this data out, and I can say, well, actually just for that one field, or I could highlight all of the fields if I wanted to. I could say what I'd actually like to do is I'd like to break that out and look at the detail that's behind that at an account and description level. So by just selecting my one cell or multiple cells, again, I'm just adding which fields I would like to add in my expanded criteria. And then what Q&A does for me is it automatically creates a subtotal control for me. It gives me the breakdown of the individual accounts that make up that balance for me, and then it shows it as part of my report, and it highlights this line in a different color to say that it's an expanded total. And again, I can use these controls the same way as you would with any sum totaling in Excel. So I can look at it back again at the summary level, or I can look at it at the detail level. So I can look at it sort of either way. And where some of this functionality really comes into its own is one of the features we're going to have a look at is actually at the drill path manager. So what you're actually able to do is you're actually able to construct your report by using some of the new functionality, like let's say drill down or expand here, and sort of say, right, okay, well that's actually quite a nice report now, I like that. So what you can then do is you can then save the drill path and just rerun it. So when it gets to the next accounting period, you can say, right, well, rerun my extract and automatically do all of this stuff for me, instead of me having to manually sort of think, well, I'm going to right click and expand here and do all of it. So you can actually do it all for you. So the next function you've got, which again was in Executive, is the breakout functionality. So what Breakout allows you to do is you can construct a report at either company level, or in this case I'm going to actually do a breakout by accounting period. So I can actually construct a top level report and then say what I'd like to do is I'd like to see exactly the same report, but in my case for each accounting period. But you could, let's say if you were, cost centers was one of your analysis codes, you could say, well, I'd like to see this report for each cost center. So instead of actually having to design the individual reports and the individual criteria, you can just use the breakout functionality to extract it, which has the added advantage that if you added a new cost center, or in this case, if I extended my accounting period range to period 10, period 12, so on, it would just automatically add an extra tab for each one of those new periods or new cost centers when I actually ask it to do the breakout for me. So once I do the breakout, what it does is it calculates how many combinations make up those individual reports. So in this case, it's accounting periods, and then it will create a new tab for me for every single accounting period based upon the same format of the original report. So basically, it's my same report that I had, but this is just for period 1, and I've got it for period 2, 3, and so on. So it just allows me to use the system functionality rather than using individual reports. The advantage of this is the base report might take, let's say, 4 or 5 seconds to calculate, whereas the expand on here would then probably only take another 2 or 3 seconds to expand to all of those accounting periods, because it's already got the data. It's just going to aggregate it out for you again. So it can actually speed up the performance of how your reports actually run. So as I've mentioned, with all of this functionality, one of the things that you've now got, which again you had within Q&A Executive, is you've now got this functionality called Drill Path Manager. And what Drill Path Manager allows you to do is it shows you your current state of drilling, so what you've actually done to produce the report so far, and what functions you've done, and have you done expands or breakouts or drill downs or transaction listings. And what you're actually able to do is you can actually save this function by hitting the save button, and you can actually give it a runtime name, and you can have multiple different drill paths. You can actually drill the same report in different ways, and you can just save this drill path. So what this allows you to do is, once you've saved your drill path, when it comes to the next month, so let's say you've got a summary sheet on the front of your Excel spreadsheet that's got your accounting period criteria, the next month you can log in, change the accounting period criteria, and then press the Drill Path Manager button. And what it does is it will show you all of the drill paths that are available to you. So you can, and then basically what Q&A will do, will go and do all of the individual extractions for me that made up that report. And it would be dynamic. So if I was doing a breakout by accounting period, if I'd selected originally from period 1 to 12, it would just add the next month for me. Or if I just said I wanted all cost centers, it would actually automatically add any new cost centers for me to my extraction criteria. So it just allows me to effectively replay any reports that I want to on a monthly basis, which can be really quite useful. So it's almost like a macro built into the system, but to do all your reporting. So the next function we're going to have a look at, which obviously can link back to the previous one, is the scheduling functionality. So basically within Q&A now, you actually have the ability to schedule workbook functionality directly from within the application, so the end user can actually do it. So what it allows you to do is you can create a task name, so you give it a name and you say what that's going to actually do, and it says, well, it's in this spreadsheet, it's an Excel workbook, and you can choose here whether you're going to allow other users to view and edit the task, or whether they can edit and delete the task. So it depends on whether you want to make it, well, actually no, I'm the only one who can actually edit this task. Oh yes, I don't mind if I allow other users to view it and schedule it and perhaps rerun it for them for themselves manually. So you can just decide here, and it's again just check boxes. You just decide whether you turn it on or not. And then basically on the processing, you just tell it what you would like to do. This is quite similar to the old Q&A alert in this way. So the example I'm giving here is I'm saying, well, what I would like it to do is I would like it to run an email function. So I would like it to email this report to everyone who's in that group. My subject is going to be monthly Q&A report with my content. And what I'd like to do is, rather than make it in Excel, I would like it to be a PDF report. So what I'd like to get to do is actually do all of the extracts for me, PDF that, and then attach it to an email and send it to this group. So it gives you a lot of functionality within there to allow you to do these things. And it could just literally be that all you want to do is save. So you can actually just tell it to extract the report, effectively update the data and save it to save you doing it. So if you've written a lot of complicated reports that might take, let's say, a couple of hours to run, rather than you actually having to watch them, you can just schedule them. So right, okay, just go and run this, and then it will just carry on, run all the data for you, and then finish off. And what it does is, if we look at the next page, it actually shows you here a log page when you look at the alert to tell you what it's actually doing. So I can see here that my monthly report is currently set to run this spreadsheet, and I scheduled it to run on the second day of every single month at a specific time. So these are all future dates, so they'll be pending. I can actually say, well, show me all of the completed events as well, so you can actually see which ones have completed. And if I wanted to, I could just literally run this task manually myself as a one-off task to do it. And obviously, because the scheduling is based upon sort of the Windows scheduling functionality, you could get it to run the same report every hour of every day. You know, so you could say, right, during working hours, I'm going to run this report every hour and send it out as an update report. So this is effectively how you can do the alert functionality that you have in Q&A, where you could do over budget alerts and those kind of things, because you can just literally set up Excel spreadsheets that will do it, and then set them up as a schedule within here and say, right, go on and sort of move the schedule along from there. So with that, that's a sort of a brief overview of all of the new features of Q&A 11 and some of the features that have been brought into Excel. I'll sort of open up to any sort of questions that people will have.